You get the save get from a tree. The Forgothen Realms, or in other words, Faerûn, is one of the biggest and best known campaign settings out there to play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition in. As a matter of fact, it is what Dungeons & Dragons is written for, either it being 5th edition, 4th edition, 3rd edition, 2nd edition, 1st edition, whatever, and there are a bunch of novels for you to read through to get like a grasp of the setting itself. And a bunch of people have been writing adventures for the Forgothen Realms, for Faerûn, but when an adventure takes you outside of the Sword Coast, that's where it gets interesting. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr. Trosk and this is still your go-to YouTube channel for everything Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition third party, and today I'm talking about a Dungeon Masters Guild product called the Brotherhood of the Griffon, and the subtext being save Aoth, leader of the Brotherhood, in this 7th to 8th level one-shot. It is a one-shot, and as you know, I absolutely love one-shots. I am a big fan of one-shots because I'm an adult, and sometimes you can play, and sometimes some people can't play, and you just want to run some D&D, but you don't want that commitment or whatever. One-shots rule. Now, the Brotherhood of the Griffon, might ring a bell for you. It didn't for me at first. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not reviewing it because of this, but for a lot of people, this might be a selling point. And I'm actually talking about this. This is a webpage that talks about Brotherhood of the Griffon, the book series. Also, the internet thinks that I need a new laundry machine. As you can see right here, the internet thinks I discovered a new Samsung laundry machine. For some reason, I don't need a new laundry machine. My laundry machine is perfectly fine. Don't worry. So, Brotherhood of the Griffon is a series of 5 novels by Richard Lee Byers that continue the adventure of Aoth Fezim. That's the name right there, the leader of the Brotherhood of the Griffon. So for people who have read these books, actually, I'm not like much into like D&D books because there are so many out there. I basically just don't know where to start. But for people who've read this, they probably know the name Aoth, who is the leader of the Brotherhood of the Griffon, which is already a really cool thing. Now, the writers told me, like, Aoth is not, like, the most famous person in the Forgothen Realms, but they have, like, a niche following, which is really cool. So if you have read the novels, or you know the characters, or one of your players has, like, it's really cool to just introduce it, and where you know one of your players is into D&D novels, and suddenly you introduce this character, they know it's absolutely, they will be like, okay, this is so cool, I have to save this guy that I've been reading books about. So enough of that, we're going to talk about, of course, the book itself. I have to switch right here, okay, and this is the Brotherhood of the Griffon. Now, there is one complaint I have from the start. It's a big one. No, it's not really a big one, but it's also kind of a big one. Right here, it says it's a 7th to 8th level one-shot. But when I go into the text somewhere here, I don't know exactly where it is, it says that it is built for a group of 9th level adventurers. So that is a mistake. That is, like, it's not a big one. Like, if you're like me, you're an experienced dungeon master, which this is kind of like written for, to my opinion. If you're kind of like an experienced dungeon master, that's no problem at all. You're just like, oops, this is a little bit difficult for level 7 or whatever. You just lower the difficulty a little bit. But if you're kind of new to it and you just want to run it because you know the character or you love the ID, yeah, that's something that they kind of need to fix. I will send them an email about that or send them a message about that, but they kind of need to fix that. Now, the Brotherhood of the Griffon, why I wanted to review this is there's actually 3 good reasons that I want to review this. First of all, the artwork, and I'm not talking about the cover. The cover is great, but it's in a style that we've seen in D&D before, right? It's also not this art, it's also not this art, it's also is this kind of art. I absolutely adore this. Now, it's a city called Phsant, Phsant. I'm going to call it Phsant. which is the city, and they kind of describe this city, and all you can see is this picture if they describe the city. It's really well written, where like most of the folk that live here are of different races or species, I should say, and they most of them are like happy and helpful and cheerful because everything is going well and all is fine and life is good, right? Markets, apples, bananas, whatever you want. So that is a really cool part of the book. I know it's about like artwork is not like the most important thing, but I absolutely adore this kind of artwork. This the same, they go into a dark oasis, and I don't want to like kind of spoil what happens in this adventure. I just want to like tell you why I like it and the way it is set up and the way it is written. So I'm probably going to murder the main like the story background. So if you've written this, I'm sorry, but I will kind of simplify it. Basically, there is a Brotherhood of the Griffon who are a bunch of mercenaries, and they did some stuff in the past that made them very famous. And now, kind of like shit hit the fan, there is this evil necromancer type dude, and the Brotherhood of the Griffon is kind of in danger, and they split up into two ways. One of a part of the Brotherhood of the Griffon went into like this dark dungeon that has a bunch of undead, and the other part they went into like what you just saw, the oasis, where so your players kind of get. That's the first thing that I like about it. Although it is a contained story, it's a one shot. I like that video game-esque approach where it is a contained story that has a set beginning and a somewhat set end. Maybe there's like 2 endings or 3 endings, depending if you're a dungeon master who wants to improvise. Maybe there's like 6 endings, but it's kind of like a start and a set end, but there's like different paths towards that end. So you can take you can first go to the dungeon, which makes stuff happen in the oasis. You can first go to the oasis and make stuff happen in the dungeon, right? I really like that. It's simple, it's effective, it makes people talk to each other on the table, like what are we going to do first, what's happening. So I don't want to like spoil the story, but don't expect like this completely super original story, because it isn't. It is something, it is what we've seen before, like the leader of a cult or the leader of a mercenaries group, Brotherhood of the Griffon, is in trouble and you need to go help them. There are some plot twists and there's some stuff going on, of course, but there's nothing like big, to my opinion. It's just the way it is written out, it's just the way it is being told, and that's sometimes, most of the times, that's more important than actually trying to come up with like a super original story. I'm not looking for super original stories, I'm looking for legit good, well-written stuff. So what I said also is reason number 2 that I really like this is they go outside of the Sword Coast. So they go, the Sword Coast, as you can see, is right here, which is the most famous part of Faerûn, right? That's what I think is really cool. I think the Forgothen Realms, and many people kind of like don't understand that, but the Forgothen Realms is way more than just the Sword Coasts. For example, there is this book, Rashman or whatever, from the Forgothen Realms, which I just want to really quickly talk about this. This is a campaign setting of the Unapproachable East, which is a part of Faerûn. It is a part of the Forgothen Realms, and it is just really interesting to see that people are writing stuff outside of the Sword Coast, and I just always really like that. And as a matter of fact, when I zoom in here, it is basically here where the adventure takes place. Kind of like, oh, this is really hard to do, I need to do it like this. Kind of like here-ish, because it has some tie-ins with the Thay and the Necromancer that is the bad guy of the adventure, is kind of like a reject from the Red Wizards of Thay, which is a really cool idea. It's like the Red Wizards of Thay are this thing, they are this group. If you know them, you know them. If you don't, you don't. I'm not going to go too deep in them, but they're like crazy, evilish wizards with like, they're bold and full of tattoos, and they have rejects probably, and this person is a reject from the Red Wizards of Thay, and he goes and do some trouble stuff in Thesk, and that's where the adventure is, which I think is really interesting. Now, if you want to like continue adventuring there, the stuff written for these parts of the Forgotten Realms, there's just less of that stuff. There is enough to play or make your own story. It's D&D, do whatever you want, but like the Sword Coast is completely fleshed out, and all of the other stuff is just named in most of the official content. So you need to go to third-party content in order to do that. And then there is, right here, there are these red boxes. And I really, really, really like this. I cannot stress this enough. I read a lot of adventures, and there's often not these things, or just like too few of these things. And I think you just can't have enough of these. Because you are reading this part of the text in somewhat of like a neutral voice, right? When you read, when I do, I read this in an entirely different voice. I read this in a voice that I make up in my head from like a person behind a computer who's writing the adventure, and who was like, by the way, this is by what I mean, or this is what you can do with the stuff that I'm writing for you, which I think is really cool. For example, I'm just gonna try find a really good example. This one right here. This is perfect. Reminder: darkness and dim lights. They kind of remind you that almost everybody uses darkness in D&D wrong. So if you have dark vision, you can see in black and white. Everybody knows that within a certain area when it's pitch black dark, as long as it's not magical darkness, right? So the good thing here is they tell you, by the way, even if you have dark vision, you're still rolling perception checks with disadvantage, and you're taking still a roughly -5, if I'm not mistaken, penalty to passive perception checks. Period. A lot of people are like, oh, you go into a dark dungeon and you're like, I have dark vision. I can see everything. Case closed. And the other people are like, yeah, I'll just walk behind them, put my hand on their shoulder and walk behind them. And you're like, no, yeah, sure. If you want to do that way. Now roll me a perception check with disadvantage. And they're like, what? Disadvantage? I can see in the darkness. No, you can somewhat see in the darkness. That's different from seeing in the darkness, right? So that's one of the just boxes that is in here. That are in here, and it's just really interesting to have this, like, by the way, we're putting you in a dark dungeon. There's no light here. Just deal with it. But here is just what we mean with these rules and what you can encounter as a DM. It's just like mental triggers for you to like, oh yeah, disadvantage. I completely forgot about that. And then another thing that I like about it are the maps. Like, the maps are really well done. Look at this one. It's so colorful. It's so happy. This is kind of like the place the players go to in order to get the quests. They need to find an audience with the person that's going to give them the quest. Although they send out the word, like, I'm looking for an adventuring party to go search for the Brotherhood of the Griffon. Like, especially the leader of the Brotherhood of the Griffon, they're still playing hard to catch, right? You need to go into a lobby, and then you need to talk to the receptionist, and you're like, we're adventurers. We want to talk to that person to see if we can help them, and you kind of like have to talk to them in order to get there. It's pretty easy to do, but still it's like this little thing you need to go over, which can invite some really interesting role-playing potential, like, because you can have like your quest giver, you can just get to your quest giver, right? But you can also have like the receptionist that is like being, okay, so you want to talk to the person who sent out the quest, right? So you can have all that kind of stuff. That's, yeah, I just really like that they have it in there. And then another thing, again, I'm not talking about story. Oh, they have to defeat a corpse flower, a big-ass corpse flower in the middle of an oasis. And corpse flowers are so wickedly crazy. And that's something that it's just like a minor flaw to this. A lot of the, like, some artwork is not in here. So, for example, the corpse flower, they have to fight a corpse flower, but there is no corpse flower artwork in here, which I get because the corpse flower is open gaming license from Wizards of the Coast. So you need your monster manual in order to get the corpse flower, and the artwork of it probably isn't, I think. So that's probably the reason. I don't know for sure, but yeah, the maps. By the way, if you buy this, you get these maps separately, so you can just slap them into your virtual tabletop. And then they talk about the developments, and then there is even like a side quest thingy, and I think this is really interesting. So your players are doing this thing, finding the leader of the Brotherhood of the Griffon, with some plot twists, with some stuff going on, but this kind of thing, it's called the contract, kind of gives your players the feeling of like, while you were doing this on the other side, where the enemy is or whatever, other stuff is happening. They're also talking with each other. Time is not standing still there. It's not like in a video game where the enemy is just sitting on their throne waiting for you to come to kick their ass. That's not how it works. In real life, it shouldn't work like that. So they get a assassin to come and kill you. And this is a really cool assassin kind of encounter they put in here as an extra. This assassin just pops up and she tries to kill you. They're on the roof and they're constantly shooting at you. And I think it's really cool. They specifically say, like, if your players get too close, the assassin disengages. They always try to stay on the roof and get cover from the rooftops and just pop their head up. They are literally not the kind of, like, assassin that comes in like, I'm here to kill you. No, they're actually there to kill you. They don't want to get hurt. They don't even want to get stabbed into their pinky finger. They don't want to get hurt. They want to kill you, or they're going to kill you because that's what the contract says. It's kind of like that in Star Wars where that sniper is on like the roof, shoots a dart at somebody from far away and then just gets the hell out of there. That's what an assassin is supposed to do. And I think this extra encounter, the contract encounter, is just worth the price of the book alone for me personally, because it is such a simple but well-written, simple extra thing you can put in any game. You can put this in any game you want. Just an assassin that shows up. They have been hired by the enemy and they're here to kill you, and it is incredibly difficult to do. Now, I want to talk about, okay, yes, there's also a bestiary in here, which has all the monsters that are not used from the open gaming license by Wizards of the Coast. So none monster manual, Volu's guide, whatever monsters that don't come from there are in here. There's basically an archer in here. There is a corpse flower. The corpse flower stats are in here. Evoker wizard. There is the hobgoblins are in here. Master assassin is in here. Look at that stat block. Master assassin stat block. And the master thief. And look at that. This is just really cool. The necromancer wizard. So there's always extra monsters to use in any game. It's always really cool. And then just something funny. So your players get into Phsant. That's what I'm calling the city. They go to Phsant. And this basic rumor thing starts where they need to find out what is going on, maybe some background information, and they need to roll on a rumor chart, right? Basic stuff for D&D. We all know that. Then if they fail that rumor chart, an encounter happens. You roll on a D6 table for an encounter, and it's really funny because normally the most wicked thing that can happens when you roll a 6 on that d6. Okay, random encounter. Oh, it's a 6. Oh, this red dragon comes in, or this void dragon comes in and just swipes the entire city from existence, and you get to like roll new characters or whatever. No, you get to save a cat from a tree. It's literally what it says here. The party spots a black cat on top of a tree. The cat is 30 feet up, and the character must either be able to communicate with the cat or blah blah blah. It's just so the most wicked encounter in here is saving a cat from a tree. I think that's really cool. The encounters in here are cool. Like there could be a wagon that's being robbed by robbers, basically. But just having all of these cool encounters, and then the 6 is just a black cat in a tree. I think that's really cool, especially if players who are like superstitious are like a black cat in a tree. Why are we doing this? Why are we saving a cat from a tree? Right? So they might get suspicious that it's kind of like an omen for something. Whatever. Players be players. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say about Brotherhood of the Griffon. Now, I don't want to spoil the story, I don't want to spoil the entire plotline, that's not what I do. What I do is talk about just modules that are worth picking up and worth spending your money on. So are you into the Forgothen Realms? Are you into Faerûn? Do you want to go like expand the Sword Coast or whatever? Or are you into the Brotherhood of the Griffon stories from the books? Or do you know somebody at your table who has read those books? Make sure to look at Brotherhood of the Griffon. Link is like always in the description below. And like always, until next video, bye bye.